back in here. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Good people, good people. What is going on? Come on in. Oh, Kim, I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences. My condolences. My prayers are with you and your family. Now, guys, I'm starting this one early because I am going to get off here early. I'm not staying on here for 2 hours. I just wanted to make sure that you're welcome. I wanted to make sure that you guys got the updates on what was going on, and that all the updates are understood as far as what is going on. So I'm going to go over this real quick. So that we can go about our day and hopefully have a wonderful day, considering the fact that, you know, some of the things that people thought would never happen actually took place on today. This is just the start, but in the words of Diddy, take that, take that. Michelle, hey, how you doing? How you doing? So, excuse me, I have to forgive me. They're doing construction work behind my house, so the cement truck is almost in my backyard. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Got a small group in here. People can come back later and they can catch up if they want to get information. Like I said, I just want to make sure that you guys got it, and that you were being given the correct information. So, what I have been telling you guys up until this point, this camera is getting on my nerves today. What I have been telling y'all maybe, nah, that ain't it either. Sorry, y'all. Up until this point was that that I was confident that initially that Chauvin was going to get those charges and that the other officers were going to be charged as well. And I understand that we've been going through so much that, you know, seeing these types of things happen, they almost seem like non-existent because they don't happen. In our history, these type of things usually don't happen. Thank you, Michelle. So just looking at what's going on and looking at the protests and stuff on TV, you know, people are, you know, they're excited and stuff like that, but some of them are just standing around because at this point they don't really know what to do because they weren't really expecting this to happen. And that's what actually the part, I guess, that I'm like really enjoying, because you didn't expect for this to happen. So we're gonna just look at a couple things, go over a few things, and, you know, make sure we got the right notes down. Y'all know I'm a note taker. I keep this pencil, you know, in my hand, not a pen, a pencil. Been using these since high school. So basically, what we have today, Derek Chauvin, who was the lead officer, he was the more senior officer. He was the officer that decided that he wanted to take a kneel. Derek Chauvin. He was the one that decided to put his knee into George Floyd's neck, causing his death. So the other day he was charged with third-degree murder. I was telling you guys that they had to give him something. They had to charge him with something based on the information that they had at that particular time. And once they got more information, that they could go back and upgrade or increase his charges. So this is what we saw today. Hold up. So this is what we saw today. I'm trying not to get my face all up in this camera, y'all, but I got to get a little closer. So this is what we saw today. So Derek Chauvin's charge of third-degree murder, which was, just giving you guys a definition really quick. It was just, he did something. He had little to no regard for human life. Whatever his actions were, those inappropriate actions basically led to the death of George Kelly. They didn't have to prove intention in that particular charge. It carried a maximum sentence of 25 years. He was also charged with manslaughter. So, whoever clicked that like button, thank you. If you are in here, please click that like button if you don't mind. So as of today, earlier the Attorney General made an announcement. Mr. Ellison made an announcement that he has some special information regarding the charges or whatever in this particular case. So earlier today, one of George's sons, his name was Quincy, and the lead attorney, Benjamin Crump, they showed up at Minneapolis today. They're there today because they have the memorial service for the first memorial service for Mr. Floyd on tomorrow. So they went to the makeshift memorial. So you could tell at that memorial, based on what Mr. Crump was saying, that they had already received some information about the charges. He said that he was confident that the charges were going to be increased. He was confident that the other officers were going to be arrested. That pretty much let you know that they had already gave them a heads up on what was going on. So after the conference, what we found out today is that they did increase his charge. They increased that third-degree murder to a second-degree murder. Woo! So third-degree murder, like I said, it has a maximum sentence. The maximum penalty is 25 years. Okay, now that he has this second-degree murder, that changes the maximum penalty to 40 years. So you went from 25 years to 40 years. Now, some people are still saying, well, why didn't he get first-degree murder? With first-degree murder, you're trying to prove not only his intentions, but also that this was premeditated. It would be difficult to prove that he woke up that morning and said, let me go find a George Floyd and go and kill him. That's hard to prove. With the intention, that was also something, it's still a little iffy, but they said that they had some more information in the case. I'm going to jump out there and I'm going to say that because Mr. Lane on that police body cam, because he said on there that he thought that they needed to roll him over, he said that he was worried about him experiencing excited delirium and all those things. And at least on 2 occasions, he did try to get Chauvin to either put Floyd on his side or flip him. I'm thinking that they're going to use Mr. Lane as one of their witnesses. So his charges may end up actually being reduced. Sorry, y'all. His charges may end up being reduced. So more than likely, he'll end up taking a plea deal. Just my thought. He'll probably end up taking a plea deal. And he can't take his words back because those things were actually said on the body cam. That's where the prosecution got it from. So everything, hey, Miss Fat, everything that they said in those, in the actual complaint, the first complaint that was filed by Mr. Freeman, the first attorney, the county attorney, all of those things were based on nothing but pure evidence from the police body cam. It wasn't based on anybody's testimony. It wasn't based on any statements, witness statements. All that came straight from that body camera. So the things that happen on that body camera cannot be disputed. That's the purpose of making the police wear the body cameras. So Mr. Keith Ellingson. Hey, Sunshine, how you doing? Mr. Keith Ellingson, who is, like I said, the attorney that's working on the case now. And one thing that I forgot to tell you guys, I told you that Freeman had passed it on, or that the governor relieved Freeman. It wasn't so much that he was relieved. Freeman had it as a local case, as the county attorney. What happened was they passed it over to the state. So that's how Mr. Ellison ended up with it. They took it from a local case to a state case. So it wasn't that they took him off of it because they didn't think that he was going to do his job. It was that they felt like it warranted state charges. So that's what happened with that. So now, one thing that they did say, although they charged him today, and like I told you guys before, with these charges that he has now, if they find more evidence, if they find something that's compelling, and they think that they have enough evidence, enough facts that they can prove, not a maybe, but that they can prove that this was intentional, that it was premeditated, then they can go up and they can increase his charges again. So if they find enough information, and they assured the family this, if they found more information that would lead them to prosecute this as a first-degree murder, then they would do that. But they're only going to do it if they have the evidence to support that charge. So with everybody saying something about a first-degree murder, we're not there. We're not there. I don't know if we'll get there, but we're not there yet. And me, honestly, and just my personal opinion, I don't think it was first-degree murder. I don't think it was first-degree murder. I don't think, hey, K. Nicole, I don't think that was his intention when he woke up that morning. So, just, did you realize that the ambulance were police officers in uniforms that put him in the vehicle, not the man? They can be, they can actually be police officers. In some places, they're one and the same. They're one and the same. But I don't think they were just regular police officers. But either way, they were still considered EMT. They were actually considered EMT. But whether they had a doctor on the scene, he was gone. He was gone. There was nothing that they were going to be able to do. That's why they didn't administer CPR on the site. They did not administer those life-saving measures because they knew that his life was gone. It was already gone. And those officers knew that as well. That's why they didn't move. I am, Tanya. Hope you are too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the thing is, we got the second-degree murder. So in the second-degree murder, you do not have to prove premeditation. You do have to prove intent, but you don't have to prove premeditation. So he didn't just get second-degree murder. He got felony second-degree murder. There's a difference. So that felony second-degree murder means that in the process of him committing a felony, someone was murdered. He murdered someone. Okay, so y'all like, okay, well, what's that felony? That felony is assault. So basically they're charging him with like first degree assault, even though that's not listed, but that's the felony that they're referring to. So that knee in the neck, they consider that to be an assault, first degree felony. So that's what turned this particular situation into second degree murder, felony murder. So in the act of you committing this felony, you killed him. So again, this carries a weight of 40 years, nothing more, nothing less. Now, just because they charged him with this second degree murder, that doesn't make these other charges disappear. So what that means is if they go to court, whenever they go to court, and let's say that the jury doesn't find him guilty of second degree murder because they were missing like this one piece to prove that it was second degree. The other three have been picked up and charged, Michelle. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. So if they were to go to court and the jury doesn't find them guilty of second degree murder, then they can still find him guilty of third-degree murder. You got me? So that's why you have these things that are already in place. One doesn't replace the other. It just gives them another option whenever they go to court. So they're going to go for the highest that they can get. And if they can't get that one, then they can drop down to the next one. And it also gives the defense some wiggle room whenever it comes to negotiations. We're not going to plead guilty to this second degree, but we'll plead guilty to this third degree. Or we're not going to plead guilty to this third degree, we'll plead guilty to this manslaughter. Like, that gives them a little leeway. So with the information that they have, Sunshine, the third degree was 25 years. So we got a 25-year. Okay, the manslaughter is 10 years. The third degree is 25 years. And the second degree is 40 years. The first degree is life in prison. Minnesota doesn't have the death penalty, so it would have been life in prison without the possibility of parole. So, and I just want to go back and say, now, if you've heard me say anything on these videos while I'm talking about this stuff that isn't accurate, then you let me know. But I can tell you that some of the things that I have said, that Mr. Crump has repeated them as well. He even went back and, was talking about the Constitution and talking about the preamble of the United States. And he also focused on this one thing that goes like, there is no justice without those inalienable rights that I keep referring to. Like, there are certain rights that we are entitled to. And those things, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, air, okay? You can't deprive someone of air. And that's what you did, you deprived them. Now, while we're still talking about Mr. Chauvin, there's one other thing to consider. They did make it clear, I told you guys before, that the federal government was investigating the case as well. And they were investigating him possibly under the color of law charge. Okay, well, this isn't a possibly thing anymore. They have him under investigation for the color of law charge. And this is basically a law that they use for law enforcement, people that serve in specific type of public service positions, kind of like positions of power. So you got law enforcement, you got correctional officers, firefighters, certain people that work at government like private medical facilities and stuff like that. And there's other people that are included too, but this is specifically something that was put in place for a situation such as this. So because he was operating as a law enforcement officer at the time, and he did something that resulted in the negligent death of Mr. Floyd as a law enforcement officer, then that gives him the right to be charged with a color of law federal charge. Now, on top of what he's dealing with the state, understand that that color of law charge, because it actually resulted in death, carries a penalty of life in prison to death. Now, that has nothing to do with Minnesota's not having a death penalty. For this charge, he can be charged with life without parole, the death penalty. Those are the maximums on that. So for these charges, the federal charge, that's the maximum minimum and the max period. There's no in between. So if he were to win the state hands down and they didn't charge him with anything for the state, he is still facing life in prison. Get what I'm saying? Now, let me see if I'm missing something. I want to make sure y'all got all of this. The intention. Like I said, they don't have to prove the meditation, that it was premeditated. They do have to prove the intention. The video shows intention all by itself. So once he put his knee on that man's neck, and George told him that he could not breathe. He told him he couldn't breathe on several occasions. And he said, y'all trying to kill me. I'm dying. I'm dying. Basically, he let them know, look, I can't breathe. So at that point, once you decided not to move, then you're saying that you're intentionally putting your weight on this man and you're choking him. Not only that, when you have the officer saying, look, I think we need to roll him over. And this was before he was non-responsive. So you have the officer saying, look, I think we need to roll him over. I'm worried about excited delirium. You know, like he just stopped breathing hard, like everything, he just suddenly goes. And Chauvin says, no, he's going to stay right here where we have him. Again, all of that plays into his intent. So that's why they felt bold enough today. That's why they were confident enough to say that we're going to go ahead with this second degree murder. And one thing that they did say is if they weren't confident in it, they wouldn't have charged him. They wouldn't have charged him with that. Because at the end of the day, and I don't know if I made this clear before, when you are in law enforcement and you're operating within the scope of your job, when you're operating in your own official duty, you're in an official capacity, then some things are different. It's not just based on the regular laws of the land. You also have certain protections. You have certain things that apply to law enforcement officers. So they have to make sure that whatever they do, that it's done decent and in order for these charges to stick. So that's why they were saying, you know, this case is going to be hard to try. They're going to have all I's dotted, all T's crossed. And you just have to, you know, you got to go for what you know, but you got to make sure that you come correct or don't come at all. Come correct or don't come at all. The attorney, Mike Freeman, he is actually the only attorney in that state that successfully prosecuted a law enforcement official, which happened to be a black man, but he successfully prosecuted that law enforcement official. It was initially second degree murder, and then it ended up being bussed down to a third degree murder. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's serving 12 years. So this guy is familiar with what happens with that. Getting on to these other guys that people thought were never going to be touched. Again, I told y'all to give them until Friday. They will be picked up by the end of the week. They would definitely have charges by the end of the week. There was no way for him to get a murder charge, and they didn't get charged. It was darn near impossible, unless the people really were going to just break the law, just like he broke the law and killed him in front of everybody. They were going to have to do that in front of everybody by not charging them. They didn't have a choice but to charge them. The thing was, what are we going to charge them with? And the difficulty came in with that because you have 4 officers. Now, out of that 4 officers, you definitely know that one of those officers was directly responsible for Mr. Floyd's death. Okay, so that's one of the 4. Now, you have one officer that was standing off to the side. He wasn't making any physical contact with Mr. Floyd. That was Tal. But on the other hand, you had 2 other officers left. And those 2 officers were in between his chest and his feet down at the bottom. So he had 3 officers on his person. It was 3 officers that were physically on him, restraining him. The independent medical examiners stated that his death wasn't just caused by mechanical asphyxiation. It was also a result not just of the knee being on his neck. It was also a result of knees being in his back. So not only did you cut his air off here, your knee is pressing his chest further into the ground. So if his lungs did try to expand to get some air, if something was trying to go through, you're restricting him in 2 different ways. So that does make you an accomplice. That's absolutely what it does. Now, a lot of the people on TV were saying, oh, well, if they were there, well, they got to do such and such. The only person that would apply to in this particular situation is Tao, which was the one that was out trying to play security and wouldn't let people get to him to try to help him. He's the only one that would apply to because he didn't have his hands on him. But at the same time, in law enforcement, especially in Minnesota, they have something that was just added in their manual. Not it applies to all law enforcement, but I guess because of some situations that happened before, they actually had to put it in writing, where they have a duty to, like, if you see somebody hurting, if you see an officer operating outside of his official capacity, if you see him or her restraining someone and it's going against policy, you are expected to step in. You don't have a choice. Miss Fat Tao got charges. Tao got charges. He got charges. All of them got the same charges. Right, Sunshine? If you see something, say, and don't just say something, you better do something. You better bust the move. Whatever you got to do to help ensure that whatever that officer is doing, you're going to have to stop them because you're there. You don't have a choice. So but that's not illegal. Those are policies that are specific to that police department. So that doesn't make it illegal. What does make it illegal is that you're an officer performing your duties. You see this man killing this other person. You're standing there. You're blocking these bystanders that want to try to come and help them. They literally tried to go past him. Not only did he buck up, like he was about to do something, but even Chauvin reached in his belt. He didn't even have his pepper spray in the holster where it was supposed to be. So he was ready to bust a move at any moment. He had that pepper spray in between his belt and his pants up at the front. The holster is off to the side. So he pulled the pepper spray out and pretty much dared them to come over there. So even if they were trying to get over there, they were ready to exert some other force over here, to the innocent bystanders that were watching them do what they were doing. But old Tao, he stood there and they joking, oh, well, I can't breathe. Well, you're talking, ain't you? If you're talking, you can breathe. Okay. Your smart mouth just got you some charges right here. So the three of them were charged with, this is one charge. The three of them were charged with aiding, abetting, and liability, but aiding and abetting. So what that means, and let me say this whole charge so y'all get the totality of what I'm saying, is aiding, abetting, and liability in second-degree murder, felony murder. So what that means is basically what they're doing in this one, the hands of one is the hands of all. So they're all being charged. So even though don't just say second-degree murder, whatever happens to Chauvin is what is going to happen to them. You got me? So Chauvin is facing 40 years. They're facing 40 years. They can be charged to the fullest extent. They can get the maximum sentence. And again, the maximum sentence for second-degree felony murder is 40 years. So that's what they are looking at right now. We don't know if those are going to be the only charges that they have. We don't know if these are going to be the only charges that Chauvin has. This is just what we think right now. So let's see. They have the felony offense. So all three of them were charged with that. They can receive up to the maximum sentence. You had all three of them actively participating, even though you only had, we're going to take Derek out of it for a minute. We're going to take Chauvin out of it for a minute. So you got these other three. You only had two that laid hands on them, but they did have hands on them. And then you got the other one acting as, it's almost like you the lookout or you the getaway driver in a bank robbery. So you were part of it. You might as well have got you a piece of that money too. They have a civil rights investigation. There is a civil rights investigation. That particular civil rights investigation right now isn't necessarily just for George. They're investigating the whole department for civil rights violations. So what they're going to do is they're going back and they looking at, you know, when the stuff first came out, the media and everybody was going and they were checking Chauvin's record, his disciplinary record as an officer, trying to see, you know, if he had any previous complaints and the outcome of those complaints. You know, what happened? Did he have any consequences or whatever for his actions? Well, when we look at everything here, that's giving them reason, that's giving them cause to go and not only search his record, but Minnesota apparently has a history of these type of incidents happening there. So they're going to be looking at older cases as well. They're going to be looking at those cases where, even like Tal killed somebody, and there was a case against him. He ended up being out of work for a little while. He came back to work anyway. The county ended up settling, and the people that accused him of the wrongful death, they were paid $25,000. That's what the union is for. So you have them, they're going to be going back and looking at that. They're going to look at everything, but not just from these 4 officers, because you have a lot of complaints of specific violations and stuff like that. So it's as nice as the chief is, how they usually do things, he probably gonna end up fired. And I'm not wishing bad on anybody, but you know, and it's sad that you got to be responsible for everybody, because I'm pretty sure a lot of that stuff happened when he wasn't even there. That's usually how it works. So yeah, they have that going on, and they already had the civil rights attorneys looking at it for the family anyway. So you have the color of law and anything else that they end up coming up with. But the color of law actually falls under the criminal, falls in the criminal category. Aiding and abetting. We know what that is for the most part, but let me tell you what this statute actually says. A person is criminally liable for a crime committed by another if the person intentionally aids, advises, hires, counsels, or conspires with, or otherwise procures the other to commit the crime. So even though it wasn't premeditated, when you stood there, they all aided in what he was doing. Actually, Chauvin advised them on what to do because he was the more senior officer. He had, right at 20 years in, he had these young officers. One came in 2019, one came in 2017. He was a more veteran officer. He ran things the way that he wanted it, you know, them to be ran in that particular situation. So he had the most seniority out there when they were handling that situation, and it wasn't even his call. He wasn't the one that was initially called out. It was Lane and I think the other guy's name is King, Lane and King, that took the initial call. And basically Chauvin inserted himself into the situation. Like, these young guys didn't know what they were doing. And I'm going to go out there and say, had he not showed up and the young guys handled it, Mr. George would still be alive today. But anyway, the good thing about them choosing, and this is what I'm saying, a lot of people are mad with Freeman. A lot of people have stuff to say about the governor. As a matter of fact, they said Freeman and the governor need to be fired. I want you to press pause on that. Pump your brakes on that. Okay, because they made a very important decision. Now, Freeman isn't out of the loop. Him and Ellison are actually working together. He helped Ellison get all this stuff together for this case. But the thing that I want y'all to realize with Ellison is that Ellison was a former civil rights attorney. So they got the right one now. And like I said, he had previously made some allegations, and he had already requested an investigation into them violating people's civil rights. So, God works in mysterious ways, don't he? All right. So, you have the federal color of law investigation. Now that, like I said, that's already in progress. That was actually kicked off by USA Erica McDonald. So the United States Attorney Erica McDonald, she's the one that's handling that. And from what they said, she has the full backing of the department, of her office. of that area, her district. She got their full backing and whatever she's doing with that. So when I tell you guys that this thing isn't going to get swept under the rug, it's not going to be swept under the rug. Now, the question is, are they just going to charge Derek with the federal charge, or are they going to charge all four of them with this charge? That's what I'm waiting to see on that. The Attorney General, Ellison, that fat mayor said if George can... No, that didn't come from the mayor. He was repeating what the police officer said. That's what the cop said. And to be honest with you, and law enforcement, that is said. I'm not going to lie to you. That is said. The specific phrase is, oh, if you can talk, you can breathe. That's a saying that's said on a regular basis. And that's one of the things whenever we talk about training, they really gonna have to get that out of people's minds, because a lot of people do believe that. I've heard parents say that. And the thing is, there's a difference in you breathing freely, right, Sunshine? There's a difference in you breathing freely. I mean, because all it takes is just, depending on everything that's going on with your body, you going 5 or 6 minutes without oxygen going to your brain, without blood pumping to your heart, that's a wrap. And the fact that you literally had your knee on this man's neck for almost 9 minutes. Yeah. Ellison, right, you can, but it's not efficiently enough. Well, the thing is, right, it's not enough to keep you going. Now, we're going to factor in a few things. And this, again, this isn't anything negative with Floyd. I just want to put this whole thing, like, give you a big picture. So you have this autopsy report. Mind you that the first report was only preliminary, and that's why they were saying that his underlying medical conditions combined with the restraining, as well as any intoxicants that he may have had in his system, that all of those things possibly contributed to his death. That was just a preliminary report. That was without the full autopsy. That was without any toxicology reports. The toxicology reports matter. So when it comes back, now the two independent MEs, they didn't mention anything about any substances in his system. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter as far as his murder. But they didn't mention anything about any substances in his system, and they could only check so much because there were certain organs, there were certain parts of Mr. Floyd that they weren't given access to in their evaluation. So a lot of things that they had to, that they were doing, a lot of the stuff that they were calling was merely based on the videos and what they could see in the video, and then how it looked, how his body looked. So then you have that initial ME for the county that gave the preliminary one first. Y'all saw the other day, Dr. Bazin and the young lady, I can't think of her name right now, Alicia, they did their report, and maybe 20 minutes later than the original ME, the county coroner actually came, actually came, and he gave his official statement. And that official statement was saying that his death was basically caused because his heart stopped. It's asphyxiation. It's the only difference is the independent examiners came out and said, look, this mechanical asphyxiation, your knee to the neck, that's what killed him. We don't want to hear nothing else. There was nothing else that contributed to it. If it wasn't for your knee in his neck, he would be alive and well today. Take that charge and go and sit down somewhere. The coroner, they try to be a bit more, they're going to mention, okay, he had coronary artery disease. He had hypertension, and those things play a factor because you have the veins and the vessels are narrowed. So that has some play in, him getting blood and oxygen in certain places and stuff like that. But no, at the end of the day, it was due to his air being restricted. He needed some air. He didn't get that air. That was the cause of him leaving here. So ultimately, as long as both of them, well, it was three of them, as long as all three of them ruled his death a homicide, then it was a homicide. And that's what I want people to understand. That's where the holdup was coming from Freeman. It wasn't that he didn't want him charged. What people don't understand is if that ME does a report and the ME says that he dies of natural causes, nothing else, he dies of natural causes, you can't hit this man with a murder charge and the ME is saying there's no murder. You understand what I'm saying? If they're saying, oh, everything was natural, they said that, but they didn't have access to everything, Miss Fat. And that's why they kind of shied away from it. Because they didn't have access. They didn't have the access to everything. For that ME to put that in there, and if he had issues with hypertension and stuff like that, more than likely he was taking medication for it. Hopefully. But what they were saying is even with that stuff, he could still have those diseases and it still not be an underlying cause of death. You see what I'm saying? Because you can be healthy, run around playing ball, jumping, swimming, and all that stuff, and still have hypertension. So unless somebody was checking for it, or you just happened to go to the doctor and your blood pressure was up that day and they went and ran some more tests, then nobody would know unless you told them. Yeah, he was a smoker. And what the independent ME did not say, again, they made no mention of the substances that were in his system. And it's not because they didn't find it at the time that they went on TV and they did their report, because that was their initial report as well. That wasn't their final report. So when they did their report, they didn't have access to the toxicology reports. The toxicology reports for them hadn't come back yet. So whenever the first ME, the initial ME, whenever he got his reports back, they found large amounts of fentanyl, and they found methamphetamine in his system, and said that it was used like some current use, or it had been used like not too far from the time that this stuff happened. For that methamphetamine to still be in his system like that, for it to show up on that report, he had to use within that day or that day before. So you have the fentanyl that was in his system, and fentanyl slows your heart down anyway. If you guys are familiar with, or you've been there for like somebody dying and they're giving them those last like the low quality of life stuff, and they start giving them methadone or they give them fentanyl so that they can kind of ease them up out of here. So if somebody's on a respirator, on a ventilator, whatever, they give them that stuff so that they're not feeling any pain. That's you're dealing with that fentanyl, and he had large amounts of that in his system. So whenever I was talking to you guys about it before, I know some people got upset and they were like, you shouldn't bring up the drug stuff. We're going to be realistic in the whole situation. That has nothing to do with his death. It just happens that he had that stuff in his system. Now, honestly, just looking at it from the drug angle, with them restraining him, it is possible to say that his drug use has something to do with that, because the fentanyl literally it slows your heart, like it slows it down. And if you already have heart issues and then you're using methamphetamine, which speeds it back up, like you got a clash right there of substances. And that plays a lot to me when he was saying that he was claustrophobic, when he was saying even him not breathing, you could tell that he was panicking. A lot of that looked like it was also due to the substance use too. But again, this had nothing to do with his murder. This has nothing to do with his cause of death. I'm just pointing this stuff out because I told you guys I was waiting on a toxicology report, because when I was looking at his mannerisms, he did seem like he was high on something. He did seem like he was under the influence of something. And so that's what the toxicology report showed. Now, I'm pretty sure the defense is going to use that. How can you say with 100% certainty that he had these substances in his system? He has this opioid in his system. Hey, Angela, He has opiates in his system. He has this amphetamine in his system. And you're going to tell me that you know at 100% certainty that his heart stopped just because somebody's knee was in his neck? They're going to play that card. They're definitely going to play that card. They would be crazy if they didn't. So they're going to put that out there, and it's going to be again down to these the reports that come from the MEs, and they're also going to look at. They're probably going to pull his medical history if these people try to take it that far. I don't know. I could be wrong. I got a feeling that I'm not going to say for all of them, but I think they're going to try to push this one on through, because the longer that this stuff plays out, the worse it's going to end up being for them. So I just don't see, unless they just got a grimy attorney, I don't see them like letting this play out, because it's going to be more dangerous for them. And ultimately, you going to prison, bro, and you don't want to do nothing that's going to add anything else, because you already going to have to deal with some mess for killing this black man and you a cop. And that's just facts. That's facts. You know. You a cop, you done kill somebody? Okay. Somebody gonna be staying in shoe. That's all I'm saying. The Attorney General said that their goal was to prosecute this case and do it as quickly and thoroughly as possible. They didn't want to leave any stones unturned. He recognized the challenge that they were going to have with prosecuting a law enforcement officer, just because they have that shield, you know, that basically it's like instead of a coat of armor, it's like a coat of protection for them to keep them from incriminating themselves. And again, that's why they went ahead and fired him. You're no longer a cop. You better speak up. Speak. We ain't protecting you. Go ahead and talk to those people. What am I missing? Another one of the things that they did find drugs in the system. They did. But this is just a conversation that we're having, y'all. Don't get me wrong. I want to make myself clear. That has nothing to do with his actual death. We're just talking about the findings that were, yeah, I see it on the thing. We're just talking about the findings that were actually in that report. But that has nothing to do with his death. So I just want to make that clear, so nobody's thinking that I'm trying to say that this was because of this, or, you know, he was a bad person, because everybody has their own ills. You know what I mean? So the Attorney General said that he wanted to make sure, he said that he was not being swayed either way by the court of public opinion. He wasn't going to let the public rush him to judgment or have him taking missteps when it comes to this case, because he understands the importance of this case, and that this case is basically setting the precedence. And that's what I was getting into last night and the last couple days. Yeah, all this stuff has been happening. It's not happening by happenstance. You understand what I'm saying? So it's really about people thinking about that precedence that might make you want to go back and watch that thing, because at the end of the day, when you put all this stuff together, it's about setting a precedence. And right now, at this particular time, again, I wish that we, you know, didn't have to lose Mr. Floyd in the process of all this. It was almost like he was a sacrifice in all this. But had this not happened at this particular time, then we would get the same results that we've been getting in the past. So that's something else that the Attorney General spoke on. And I'm just a firm believer of that too. There was something about even coming up into this, the stuff with Ahmaud, the stuff with Breonna. There was something like we were inching up to this slowly but surely. And now we are at that tipping point. We're at a time right now, and I keep saying it, these young people, they cut from a different cloth. You understand what I'm saying? And for us, I'm still young too, don't get me wrong, but for us is, we're used to doing things a certain way. When you hear them talking about the younger ones, the 20, the 21s, 25, oh well, they just rebellious, they do this, they do that. They have not been exposed to the things that we have been exposed to. And it's not that we've been exposed to slavery, but we did grow up with a certain degree of fear when it comes to certain things, and that fear was invoked by years of slavery from our ancestors. Well, when these younger kids are coming up, you're telling them about that stuff, but for them, it's almost like you're reading them a fable. It's almost like, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody's telling you what happened, but it's almost like, I know you said it happened, but it's hard for you to picture because you weren't around during that time. So your mind is not really processing that because you got to see it. And you got them coming up, they don't care who they associate with. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna chill with this person, they're gonna chill with this person, like whatever. They'll curse you out for trying to tell them who they supposed to hang out with. Bump your views, and that's where you coming from, or where they're coming from. So when that video showed, and you have these people, and especially this guy that's saying, dude, I know what you're doing. That's a jujitsu move. You're cutting off his air. You're stopping him from bleeding. You think we don't know what the F you doing? You think we don't know? Dude, I know what you doing. And to have that cop still kneel, y'all, we talked about this last night. In that same position that y'all man didn't want Kaepernick taking, that kneel, he used that same kneel to kill this man. And what it's doing right now is it's making man look like he don't have a lick of sense because he's refusing to even say the word racial. He won't even let that come out his mouth. That ain't happening, Captain. So it's like you put certain things in place, and now it didn't turn out the way that you expected it to turn out. So now you want to call in the army brigades and you want all these people to come in and try to fix your mess when you created this monster. So I'm thinking that something had to happen at this particular time because you had the younger people feeling like their vote didn't count. There's no need for us to vote. I said this stuff last night. There's no need for us to vote. Everything gonna be based on electoral college anyway. Y'all know how this stuff goes. When I tell you the worst thing that these people could have done was wake these young folks up and even wake some of the older folks up. Like, we still dealing with this mess. We thought we put this in the closet behind all the stuff and we weren't gonna have to go back in the closet and dig this stuff back out. Well, guess what? It's been pulled back out the closet. We're gonna have to go back and look through this stuff and see what's in this box that we got right here. And that's what we're dealing with right now because people are having to go back and recognize that this thing still exists. And it's not that it wasn't going on, it's that you have become indifferent to it. We go back to that indifference. So if it's not something that's affecting you specifically, if it doesn't have a direct impact on you, then it doesn't matter to you. Just like these cops that were out there with George Floyd, not only were they showing an indifference, they were complicit. You helped kill that man. Your indifference contributed to his death. Because that wasn't somebody's knee on your neck, you turned around and act like it wasn't even happening. So that's why you're being charged with aiding and abetting at this time. Your indifference and your complicity is what got you these charges right now. That's why you're dealing with these felony charges at this particular time. The Attorney General said that Mike Freeman did an excellent job with the information that he had gathered in the case so far. He was doing an excellent job. And when they put all their information together, these are the charges that both of them came up with. It wasn't just him. These are the charges that both of them came up with. So he made sure that he continued to give credit and give kudos to Mr. Freeman because, they understand that people are feeling a certain type of way. But you know, if you got somebody that was like genuinely working on that case, you don't want to just go and just let people bash them, like, you know what I'm saying? So he kept making sure that he gave him credit for whatever he did. I wonder what their families are saying about. I don't know. The only family I can tell you about is Derek. And Derek's wife said she want her name back, darn it. She said she want her name back. She did a Tina Turner, but it was in the opposite way. You know what I'm saying? She said, I don't care what he get. He can have everything else, but the name stays. I want my name back. Not your name. I don't want Shyvon. I want my name back. I'll take my name back for 800, Alex. Can I have that back? He can have all his stuff. He can have his racism. He can have his bigotry. He can have his darn evilness. He can have his slackness. He can have his broke down knee. He can have his jacked up haircut. He can take every little nasty thing that he has. Just let me get my name back. I want my name back. Did you see Shabazz interview Shyvon? I didn't, Miss Fat Fat. She didn't know he had that in him until he showed it. She knew we had it in him. She knew. See, one thing about the devil, he might not come out with horns like full-fledged, you know. You don't wake up one morning to see horns and hooves, you know what I'm saying? And a pitchfork. But he always shows his face in one way or the other. The thing is, it sounds like she either chose to ignore. Right, Sunshine, that's what I'm talking about. She want that name back. He did some stuff to her. If he was bold enough to kill this man like this and he already had at least 18 complaints, because these are the complaints that were documented. People like that, he's not a different person at work than he is at home. No. He was that same little nasty joke at home that he was when he was putting that knee in George's neck. You see what I'm saying? This gave her an out, and it gave her a way to do it publicly and let people know, I ain't down with his BS. I ain't down with his buffale. Bruh, you on your own. I ain't that ride or die chick for you. I'm going to leave you before you get in there all the way. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Don't wait on no letters from me. Don't ask me to put nothing on your books. Don't ask me for no visits. Don't ask me for no magazines. Don't ask me for no pictures. Don't ask me. Just don't ask me. She went ahead and made that clear from the beginning. And you know what that divorce court going to do? They're going to grant her that divorce. You going to jail, bruh. But he has due process. Let's not forget that. There's due process. There's due process. And he's been afforded that. He had time to go out and get him a drink and everything after he did what he did. So all of them were afforded due process. They had time to go and chill. They had time to skip the country if they wanted to. But you know, it all comes back. It all comes back together. You law enforcement, where you were, you can't run. I think it was advised to her to leave and have no association with him because of what is happening, and she doesn't want any harm done to her. Brina, I think, because I'm telling you, a person that, if it's in you, it's in you. And that's what I was saying about the people that were looting and stuff. If you're a thief, you're a thief. See what I'm saying? If you're a thief, you're a thief. Just like you go to the county or you go to wherever you go, prison farm, like whatever. And just because you hadn't seen a woman in a couple months, you don't just automatically say, well, hey, Calvin, hey, John. You don't automatically do that. If you decide to start going in that direction, and that's something that you were already thinking about in your head, because you don't just automatically, you know what I'm saying? People are under that impression, but no, that's not how this works. So it's the same thing. If you're a little hateful mofo, then you're a little hateful mofo. You just know how to cover it up with certain people. But if that's in you, it's going to come out at some point. It always comes out. As women, sometimes we think it's cute, until somebody trying to put their hand. He probably done put his knee on her before too. I'm just saying. They ain't just happened overnight. And I'm pretty sure that is not the first person that he apprehended and did that to, because he was too comfortable doing it. It's like, even if you're taught a new move, if you're taught a new defensive technique. You got to play with that thing a couple times. Like if you go and try to put that on people, you're going to look a plumb fool because you haven't practiced that. So you still sitting there trying to remember, you know, what folks told you to do, and shoot, wait a minute, I did it like this. You know, when we were like, you got to play with that. No, he did that. He was way too comfortable. And when he adjusted himself, and that's what I was saying when I was showing that video, I said, this mofo just adjust his knee to put it deeper in his neck. That's something that you did before because he waited. It was when George said, I can't breathe. When he lifted up his head a little bit to try to get a piece of air to talk, that's when he dug in his neck deeper. That let me know that that wasn't the first time that he's done it. So I'm pretty sure that in the process of them doing these investigations, bringing the other cops they were locked up. They got the charges today. They got the charges today, and they're facing the same charges. It's aiding and abetting him in the second-degree murder. So they're all facing 40 years, all four of them. What's that, 160? They got 160 total. 160 just off the state. I hope I did that math right. I don't want y'all talking about me 40 times 4. Yeah, that's 160. So one of the things that the Attorney General also said was, and it's basically going back to what the person said on the phone last night, is going back to the stuff that we've been talking about. We can't become complicit. Okay, yes, these officers former officers were arrested. That's a good thing. That's what everybody was calling for. We want all 4 locked up. So now you got all 4 locked up. Okay, now what? You got to be, you know, on top of things. You got to be on top of things, because just because you've been charged, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be convicted. Just because you've been charged with particular, you know, with these particular things, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the thing. If you are convicted, that doesn't mean that that is going to be the charge or charges that you're ultimately convicted on. So we have to follow this thing all the way through, which goes back to another thing that the attorney was saying. And he said that one successful prosecution won't right this wrong. Those are facts. Another thing he said was, you know, work needs to be done. We got to get out here. We got to put those boots on the ground. But a lot of people, they want to sit back and wait and see what happens with the case. No, this isn't about waiting to see what happens with the case. You got to start working now. Because what you're doing is going to impact this at the end of the day. So you got to start that work now. Another thing that he said that I thought was pretty good. He said a protest can shake a tree and it can make the fruit fall down. But then once you make that fruit fall down and you have to start picking that fruit up, you got to gather that fruit. And now you got to figure out how to make this jam or this jelly with that fruit that you've gathered from shaking that tree, from that protest. So you done made all this noise and you done got people's attention. So now what are you going to do with it now that you have it? Again, the follow through. The follow through. Did you see the 2 cops that put him in the car? They were not EMS. George didn't receive any medical attention on site because the EMS never got it. They knew he was dead when they got there. That's what it boils down to. They got a call. The call that came through was that they had a responseless male. They knew that he was dead. They knew that he was dead. The fact that when anybody, and it's even the cops, they have the same duty. Like, they should have been doing the CPR before the medics ever got there. Whether the medics ever arrived, they should have been doing that CPR and rotating, because they had enough people to rotate. And even if it took 15 minutes for them to get there, they had the ability to keep that rotation going. And they didn't do it because they already knew he was dead. So at any point, they should have got off of him and started those chest compressions. You saying he's not responsive, he's not breathing, get off of him. Start pumping that chest. That's something that they chose not to do. Again, which goes along with the intention. It goes along with the negligence of this whole situation. So again, even if you putting your knee on his neck for just a few minutes didn't, do anything to him. Let's say you took your knee off after 4 minutes and he just had a little life in his body. Had you done those chest compressions, had you done that CPR, maybe he would still be here. But a lot of law enforcement, their idea, and I got flip-flops on, but their idea of CPR is this. That's 3 stomps to the neck. That's CPR. They ain't trying to go and put their mouth on nobody. Okay, you don't want to use your mouth? You got guards. You got little things to put around you. I can't think of the name of it, but you wear them in a little thing on your belt. Put that on. You don't have to have no, direct mouth-to-mouth contact with them. You got this little shield. You got this barrier in between. That's just not something they just didn't want to do it. And to be honest, even when the medics came through, they should have at least brought an AED out with them, and they could have hooked him up to that AED and shot him on sight if they were trying to preserve his life. See, that's the if. If they were trying to preserve his life, that AED would have been on site, and they would have put those darn pads on, and that machine would have told everybody, get back, I'm getting ready to shock this dude, and it would have administered those shocks. We would have saw his body jump from those shots, and it would have went, see whatever kind of vitals it could get from him, and if it wasn't getting the reading that it needed to get, it's going to tell you better stay back. Boom, and it's going to hit him again. If they were trying to save his life. If we see that they weren't. There was no intention of trying to make sure his life was spared. Just saying. The mere fact that they kept him on his stomach that long, that said enough. That said enough. Another thing the attorney said was, he said he was confident because he based everything that he saw and everything that he had, he based it on facts. He based it on the criminal statutes, and he based it on criminal case law. He didn't go off anything else. So he said, based on those things, facts, statutes, and criminal case law, he believed that the charges are justified and they're based on nothing but facts alone. It ain't about your feelings. It ain't about who you related to. It's not about the kind of work that you do. It's not about any of that. He's saying, I looked at the facts, period, point blank. So I don't have to argue with nobody about the information that I got because I based it on facts. That matters. Anytime that you're playing with, you trying to develop a hypothesis, or you're basing your case off innuendos or speculation, then you already going in court knowing that there's a high probability that you lose your case if it's not based on facts. Remember that. Remember that. Facts matter. He said that they need solid information. He said everything for the case is going to be fully researched. Fully researched. He said before they get in that courtroom, they're going to make sure that their evidence is solid, that they've searched everything. They looked at that information back, forth, and in between to make sure there's no gaps in anything that they're doing. Because when they go to trial, they want that conviction, period. That's it. They want that conviction. They're not going there to watch somebody plead to a lesser charge. No, they want the conviction that they're coming, in there with. But there are times when, if you can get them to plead to this, then you go ahead and let them plead out. Okay? I told y'all that it was basically like they said that he assaulted him, like he had a first-degree assault. So that's why he had the second degree, but it's felony second degree. So I want to make sure you guys have that. And basically he said that at the end of the day, they're going to continue gathering evidence, right? And they're still saying if there's anybody that has any more videos, anything that they think can contribute to the case. So this is even if people have heard Derek, if they've heard Shivan go out saying that he don't like black people, or if they heard him, let's go back to the job, if he ever made any comment acknowledging that he knew George Floyd, that's evidence. If there's anybody there that could say that they saw them there at the same time, that they could have physically crossed paths at some time, that's something that could possibly be used. So they just you have different things. Also today I saw, it was earlier on CNN, the store, that cup store that they have the memorial and stuff at. The co-owner and then one of their public affairs people, guys, they came out and they spoke to CNN today. And the co-owner was talking about the cashier and how that cashier felt calling the police. And they said that they made a decision. Hey, Tori, they made a decision that regardless of what happens at that store, unless it's something violent, they said they're never calling the police again. They're not going to get the police involved in anything because they felt bad that they called the police about this, counterfeit $20 bill, and it resulted in somebody's death. And I can only imagine how they feeling from that. It's not their fault. It's completely not their fault. As a matter of fact, it's not George's fault. You know what I'm saying? It's the fault of the people that did this to him. But, to know, you called them out and ultimately the end result of that call was this man's death. That's something that they're going to have to deal with. So the person that they were talking about, that person definitely needs to go and talk to somebody, because you don't want to walk around feeling like you're carrying his death on your back. And even though you know in your mind that this man, these other two men, these 4 men total actually caused his death, that's still something that would weigh on people. Now, before I say anything else, I need y'all to hit that like button, because I done talked till my throat is dry. I'm parched, okay? I need a little mouthful. Coke Zero and turned into Coke No, okay? Lord have mercy. But I think I covered everything. If they see more evidence, then they're going to charge him. I think I said that they wanted the charges before the memorial service on tomorrow. They got those charges. So that's something that's going to give the family just a little comfort. Of course, it's not going to replace the fact that they have lost a loved one. It was good seeing his son on there, and he has a handsome son. He has some pretty kids. You got some people that just make some pretty babies. He has some pretty kids. He has beautiful kids. They have a beautiful family. And you can tell that their family, just one of his other brothers spoke today out of New York, and they seem like they have a real spiritual, that they have a spiritual family. With the second degree, one of the decisions, the Attorney General said that they made the decision to go ahead with that. He said that was based on the video. That ain't his son. What you mean that ain't his son? What you mean? The boy said that was his daddy. What you mean that ain't his son? Tori, we ain't gonna do that, child. I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. Because I know people where folks saying that they ain't the baby daddy. And if they went to Maury said that's the baby daddy. I don't know. I looked at him. He resembles him a lot. He resembles him a lot. I ain't gonna be the one, because I won't hold no flashlight. I ain't getting in that, Tori. You ain't pulling me into that. I ain't getting into that. You out. I ain't getting into that. But yeah, he's a handsome guy. Definitely a handsome fella. You know how you claim children if you would. I don't know. I know they put Quincy, start with an M in the middle and Floyd on the end. I don't know nothing about that. I don't know, but the family was okay with him saying that he was his son, so I'm gonna stay out of that. I'm gonna stay out of that. But he does resemble him, so we don't know what cookie jar people were dipping in now. Y'all know. Let me go on back to my notes. Okay. So recap, you got Chauvin receiving his charges being up to felony second-degree murder. He also has the federal investigation underway with them looking to charge him with the color of law. You have the other three, I'm gonna call them the three amigos right now, because they better become friends. If they weren't friends before, you better be friends now. You got the three amigos, they're all facing aiding and abetting, aiding and abetting a murder in the second degree, a felony murder in the second degree. So all of them are facing 40 years, because they can receive up to the maximum sentence. The officers, they were King, Lane, and Tao. Again, the attorneys, the legal team, they're asking for patience for everyone. Just give them time to sort through stuff. It's an ongoing investigation. And more than anything, they're trying to rebuild the trust with the public. All of them charged, Tory. All of them. All of them facing 40 years. Everybody facing 40 years. They're trying to rebuild the trust and rapport with the public. It's going to take some time, you know. Hopefully they'll do this case some justice. But like I told you guys last night and the other days, like this, right here, this is unprecedented right now. The fact that this stuff is happening so fast, it seems like it's taking a long time to other people that aren't familiar with how hard it is to actually like convict or even get a police arrested for murder, especially in the line of duty. So this is major. It's major. Hopefully at this point, nobody has any reason to be going and burning up nobody's stuff, tearing down nobody's stuff, stealing nobody's stuff. So, okay, y'all said what you wanted, you got that, now leave people's stuff alone. Leave it alone. So I'm gonna say years out of right for people to trust the police. So I don't know. I can't. I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't have a dog in that fight. All I can tell you is that everybody, you know, just because they wear a badge, that doesn't mean that they're bad people, you know. I can only speak on what I know. They need to stop lying and saying it's only black people killing police because it's not. I haven't seen that, Tanya. I haven't heard anybody say that. I haven't heard anybody say that. You don't see too many black people killing police officers. They don't get a chance to do that, actually. Not saying that they would do it if they had the opportunity, but I don't know. I think it's it isn't so much that at this point I feel like it's not even about pointing the fingers at people. At this time, it's time to, you know, put up or shut up. You got everybody's attention. You got people saying that they want to work. People are tired of what's going on. People just had like a reality check for those that were saying, you know, this stuff doesn't happen anymore. You know, that stuff happened back in the 60s. It happened in the 50s. We're not living in that type of world anymore. Listen. Let's see. So that pretty much covered everything that was going on today. You still have people that are marching and things like that. So hopefully they'll continue, doing those types of things. But what is also important during this time is to really start putting in some work. Like, what are you gonna do? What are the things that you're willing to do to help change things? And one of the things, Van Jones, he was on CNN and he was talking about at this point, it shouldn't be about your political party, and it shouldn't be. Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell y'all something, and no truer words have been spoken. If you don't listen to nothing else I say, I need you to listen to this. A politician gonna be a politician. It don't matter if he's red, blue, or purple. A politician gonna be a politician. Don't let nobody fool you. Facts. So, at the end of the day, if everybody is tired of this, if everybody has an issue with this, then it's time to put that blue hat down, that red hat down. If you're independent, it's time to put all that stuff down and get to work on laws, changing some laws, doing some more, reform. It's time to put those boots on the ground. One of the things that he mentioned, and I think that does need to be one of the first things that he work on, they need to ban the chokehold. Don't give anybody any kind of opportunity where they can go and try to slide a little technique up in there that could kill somebody and nobody know what they're doing. Like, no. 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 Just saying. Another thing that he said, and we talked about this the other night, was requesting that they have more training. I'm going to say this. They got training out the wazoo. Okay? They got training for days. The training has to be specific to these types of things. So they definitely need to know how to de-escalate a situation. And I'm going to take that further. Because his medical report showed that he had intoxicants in his system, law enforcement needs to know how to really work with people appropriately who may be under the influence of something. We only think about people being under the influence of alcohol. Yeah, okay, they drunk. They drunk. Okay, but everybody's not under the influence of alcohol. And the side effects and the behaviors from those intoxicants, they're all different. They're all different. So me personally, I feel like law enforcement as a whole, not just cops that are on the ground, I feel like law enforcement as a whole needs to get training and learning how to deal with people that are in those situations, because they may do some things to you and it's not so much that they're trying to hurt you, but they done use this stuff and all the stuff that you telling them that they did. If you tell them about it tomorrow, they're not going to remember a thing you said. I didn't do that. Like, what are you talking about? So I think that they need a de-escalation training just in regular situations. And a part of that de-escalation, which we have cultural diversity and stuff like that, but it needs to be a very specific cultural sensitivity training that includes de-escalation and conflict resolution. Because if you don't know how to resolve a conflict, then if this person is here, you gonna be here. If they on 60, you on 200. So all it takes is the slightest thing to spark something, and you got a whole situation. We see it every day. A lot of people bring their problems from home and they bring them to work. And then the minute somebody says something to them or looks at somebody the wrong way, you got a problem? You got a problem? And you end up taking whatever frustrations and anger out that you done had at home with whatever your home situation is, you done brought it to work. And we see the end result of that. So I would take that a step further. And I think that I'm saying law enforcement. I ain't talking about police officers. I'm talking about law enforcement. I think law enforcement needs to be required to have a certain number of, I don't want to say counseling hours, but I think that they should have at least a certain number of sessions within a year. The same way that they have to do, their annual refresher trainings, the same way they have to get recertified out on that range, I feel like they should have to see a counselor, even if it's just the EAP counselor, the employee assistance person, somebody that they appoint. They need to go see somebody. The agency pays for that. Whoever they work for, they pay for that. So I think that they need to go and make sure that their mental health is taken care of. I'm trying to think of a time of how they would keep up with that, because I'm gonna have to think on that one. But it's just a lot of things that could be done. I would make all of them. I make all of them go back through that basic training, that basic self-defense training. I make all of them go back through it. And you gonna learn the moves I taught you. We ain't doing nothing that you saw on WWE. You gonna learn the moves that we told you to do. And if I catch you doing something else that's not what we taught you, okay. So that's what I have on that, guys. Do y'all have any questions for me before I get off here? Because it's been an hour and 26, almost 27 minutes. I said I was going to keep this short. I guess this is short for me. Like the chief of police said in Minneapolis, I'm with him. At this point, this isn't even, okay, you're white, you killed this man, but this is even bigger than that. This is a violation of humanity. You treated this guy like he was inhuman, like he was not a person. All of y'all just treated him like he was less than, like he wasn't even, like the dirt on the bottom of your shoe was worth more than this man. So that complete and utter just disregard that you have for human life, that's what you're going to be on trial for. So for those of you that didn't get to watch the attorney general speaking, oh, they already changed it, never mind. Well, CNN is going back over some of the stuff now. But just remember, Chauvin charged with felony second-degree murder. That does not make his other two charges disappear. That third degree and that manslaughter is still there. But basically, that second degree, like they said, it gives them a safety net. So if by chance they can't get that second degree conviction when they're in court, they still have that third degree to fall back on. So it's not lost. It's not lost in the shuffle. Let's see. Oh, as far as the other day, we talked about that Insurrection Act of 1807. We talked about the Insurrection Act of 1807 and Man saying that he was going to basically reenact that he was going to activate the military. Well, the Secretary of Defense came on this morning. He did his own he did his own press conference from the Pentagon without Man's knowing, and he let people know, listen, I don't want no parts of no Insurrection Act. I don't agree with that. I don't approve of that. I didn't know that this man was taking us or had us coming out for a photo op. I didn't know that he was trying to use these troops right here to clear out some little garden for him so he can walk through and do all this stuff. So of course, Man is mad with him now. Everybody's supposed to do whatever, he tells them to do without question. So that's another thing. We probably gonna see somebody fired somewhere by Friday. And I think that's pretty much it. So as time goes by, we're going to keep looking. One of the things that the Attorney General also said was, let me write that down before I forget that, was that they're not going to be coming out giving a lot of information, like some of these other attorneys do. They be telling people business and just be out there talking too much. He said they're basically like, this y'all update right here. Like, this all you getting, basically. Until you hear about it going to trial or whatever, or unless, you know, some of their people put the information out. They just showed Mr. Floyd's daughter on TV. And as I get off here, I just want to remind you guys of something. We see death as a sad thing, and it's sad because we know that when somebody leaves here, we're going to miss them. We're going to miss their presence. We're going to miss knowing that we can reach out to that person if need be. So we're going to miss that person. But when I tell you that George Floyd's death was not in vain, when I saw his daughter on TV yesterday, and she was on the basketball guy, I don't know, it's Jackson or something, I can't remember his name, but she was, he had her on his neck, like she was, you know, how you had the kids, you know, on your neck. And that baby said, "My daddy is a hero." That's what she said. That's how she's gonna remember her daddy. When she sees her daddy in old news clippings, when she sees her daddy and somebody looking him up on the internet, and I can guarantee, let me not say guarantee, I can bet you, now I don't want to bet either, they gonna say I'm a gambler. I'm gonna tell you, I'm almost certain that any new laws or anything that comes out of this, they will be named after George Floyd. So his legacy will carry on. It will definitely carry on. So I thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't hit that like button, please hit that like button on your way out of the house. I appreciate y'all gracing my doorsteps with your presence. And just, you know, let's treat others the way that they want to be treated, and treat others the way that we want to be treated. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, you guys have a good one. I'm signing out for the day. You won't see me tonight unless something kicks off. Holla. Bye.